And it all boils down to your mindset, because you have to go in with a very positive mindset, and you have to tell yourself that you can do it. It doesn't matter what. And it doesn't matter how difficult it got. I didn't let it got me all stressed out. I tried to keep focused, and I try to maintain a positive mood no matter what, even when I'm extremely stressed. You can't get flustered, because if you get flustered, you're going to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, then that's not going to be good. So the one thing I can say, we just have to maintain a positive attitude.
Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the FoodGrads podcast. I'm your host, Veronica, a molecular science graduate student and career partner with FoodGrads. On today's episode, we have Sashana Chattoo-Edwards, a quality assurance technician at Waterloo Brewing Company. Waterloo Brewing Company is Ontario's first craft brewer, opening in 1984, and today it is Ontario's largest craft brewery. In this episode, Sashana and I talk about her job as a QA tech and the analytical tests that she does on a daily basis. I learn about what she loves about her job and how Centennial College set her up for success in her career. We also talk about how her love for food stems from her time on her family farm in Jamaica and how she attended an agricultural high school and college. She has some really cool experiences there. I have known Sashana for a few years now, and her positive and outgoing attitude is one that lights up the room. She has a strong work ethic, and she has this ability that she's able to search out opportunities, and it's really impressive. We round out this episode by talking about how Sashana became a FoodGrads campus ambassador and what opportunities came through it, mainly through her connections with Nicole and blogging on the website. I also wanted to mention we actually have a special guest on the show, well, in the background. Sashana's newborn son is in the background, so if you do hear some giggling, it's him. Hey, it's the podcast's youngest fan. Anyways, with that, let's get on to the show. Okay. Hi, Sashana. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we've spoken in the past, but it's been so long since we spoke, so I thought we'd sit down, have a podcast, and just share what you've done in your career with everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's just start by talking about where you work and what your role is at the company.
I work at Waterloo Brewing, and I work there as a quality assurance technician currently.
Okay, so can you tell me more about what Waterloo Brewing is?
So Waterloo Brewing, as the name suggested, it's a brewing company that makes beer. They do both their own brands and they also do co-packs. So they started out pretty small, 36 years ago, where they only did craft beers. Now they have expanded to larger facilities, more people, and they also expanded right throughout Ontario. They have 4 core brands.
That is really interesting to find out that it was in Ontario that they were the first to do the craft beering in 1984, because I feel like Ontario has such a big craft brewing right now that I'm surprised that
Right.
that's not that long ago for them. That's just shocking to me, especially how big the field is now, especially in the past, I'd say 5 years, that I know that the craft brewing just blew up in Ontario. So that's really interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And especially for them for your company to stick and stay such a strong brand name within that field, even after all these years, I think that's really impressive.
Yes, and they're expanding more too. They're getting bigger and better too. So they're doing bigger and better things as well.
That's always good to hear when you have a local grown company doing what they love and knowing how to do it properly.
Exactly.
So let's shift a little bit back more to you. So you did say that you did quality assurance. So that's a pretty, in some companies, that could be a pretty broad name for what you do. So could you give more of a breakdown of maybe some of what the daily duties that you do are?
Sure. Yes, for us, we do mostly analytical data and analytical testings. We have to make sure that the analysis is accurate, proper documentation and reporting of the specified analytical parameters. We have to do microbial parameters as well. We have to identify non-standard elements. to see if there's a risk. And if there's a risk, we have to report it to the appropriate managers. We have to make sure that there's completion of GMP audits, making sure that the quality procedure, food safety procedure, and the standard operating procedures are in good working order. And we also have to ensure that it's in compliance with GMP, which included cleaning process. We have to make sure, of course, we have to maintain good housekeeping, and we have to make sure that we have accurate, legible documentation. So we do a lot of analytical testing, such as alcohol testing, sugar testing, VDK, pH testing, etc. And the list goes on.
Sorry, so you said a test called CDK? Could you just explain a little more what that is?
So this is usually, we do the bitterness of the beer, because some beers, it's going to be more bitter than the next. So we test for how bitter the beer is. Like, for example, the Waterloo Dark, it's a little bit bitter than some of the other beers. Men mostly like those beers. So we test the different parameters for that one.
As silly as it sounds, I didn't realize that there was a test for bitterness. So it's kind of cool that you can actually do that.
Yes, we have a test for that, yes. And we test for microbes too. So we have a small micro lab that we test for microbes. We do that daily. And we also test for microbes in the water as well, because we use locally sourced water. So we test for microbes in the water as well to make sure. And we send those, we outsource labs. We send those to the labs to make sure that we're getting the correct and accurate readings as well.
That's really cool. Of course, I bet that's a big component of the brew making process, because I know obviously you start with the local water, so you want to ensure that that's really safe.
Yes, that's absolutely right. There's 4 different ingredients. Starting with the water, there's 4 different ingredients that we use in the beer. We use yeast. We test for yeast analysis as well, and we test for microbial load in the yeast as well. And we also use hops and barley. So those are the 4 main ingredients that we use in the beer.
Right. So you'd have to have a lot of stringent testing to make sure that they are meet the quality that your company looks for, correct?
That's correct. Not just analytical testing. We have to go on the line and we have to do different testing, such as we have to make sure that the labels are correct. We have to make sure that the date codes are correct. We have to make sure that the bottles, that we have the seal test, where we have to make sure that the bottles are sealed properly, the cans are sealed properly. We have nitrogen testing as well on the line to make sure that the amount of nitrogen that is in the cans, especially when we do co-packs, are up to the level the standard level that is set. We also have to do carton tests where we check the cartons to make sure that the date codes and stuff like that are correct. And we make sure, and of course, we have to do proper housekeeping, and we have to make sure that the plant is up to standard. And if there's anything that is not if there's anything that is not up to the standard, we have to report it immediately to whichever supervisor or manager is in charge.
So I guess if something did go wrong, like you say, by reporting it to the operations, I'm guessing that would be something that they might stop the line, for example, and they'd have to go correct that issue before it continues.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess that's a good segue. You did mention already about the 4 different ingredients that go into beer, the core ingredients, but for those who might not know, could you give a little bit of a general overview of what it's like to actually make beer?
Okay, so the beer making department is a little bit different from the QA department, so I don't know in depth, to be honest. I don't know the thorough procedure, because that department is different and I didn't get a chance to cross-train yet. But I do know that it's a very thorough process, and the beer has to sit in the tanks for a couple of days before it is ready. And we have to go, they will let us know at what point we should test for what, and they bring us different samples in the labs, and then we test for the different things. After it is after he stopped there for a couple of days. And then we will let them know at what point each parameter is at, so they will know what to do next in order for them to release that tank. They can't release a tank without us giving them the permission to do so. So when they bring the samples, they will bring different samples throughout the different stages of the beer processing. And we will let them know, oh, the color is okay, oh, the alcohol level is okay, or is this too high, or we have to do something, we have to adjust it and stuff like that. So it's a separate entity from our separate department from our department. However, it's kind of, we work together as a team to make sure that everything goes according to plan.
It does go to show that when you're working for a food company, especially in quality assurance, it's definitely, like you said, a team effort. So even though you are the quality assurance, even though you might not right now, because I could tell as you continue to move within this company that you'll start to learn more about the operations in the beer side, but your department really does seem like gatekeepers to make sure that you guys are running that test. And if you notice something wrong, you still have that role to stop things if they aren't within the standards that your company works. So there's a lot of teamwork going on, it sounds like.
Yes, that's correct.
So with the job, I know that it's very obvious from your looking at your LinkedIn profile that you've had a lot of experience working in mostly quality assurance, but in the food industry. And with the role that you are doing right now, what do you love doing, or what do you enjoy about your job?
The thing I love about my job is that it's for most of the companies that I work in, they tell you what to do. You're trained, you're properly trained, but you're not being micromanaged. And the thing about it is you're in charge. You are the one that say yay or nay. That I love that mostly about my job, because you're put in charge and you have to make sure that whatever the standard is, you're going with that standard and you're making sure. So you have to be very attentive, and you have to make sure that you pay attention to details, because if you don't and you send the product out without it being properly analyzed and being tested and good, then you're going to be in trouble. So that part I don't like, but the part that I do like is that I'm in charge and I'm not being micromanaged. For most of the companies that I work for, we are left to do our job and we get it done and done properly.
That's awesome. I mean, I know that most people don't want to be micromanaged. So to hear that you're trusted, that you can have a say in if something's right or wrong. I mean, I know the feeling personally. I've worked in QC or QA when you have to stop something because something's going wrong. That feeling isn't good, but at the same time, you're like, people are listening to me, and that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yes, that part is pretty cool.
So I know, like, again, going back, you've had a lot of experience working in these fields, and I know that you've had a role working with FoodGrads with the Campus Ambassador program, and I've read all your blog posts that you've posted, and I'll share those in the show notes below. But one of the ones that you had that was really quite popular on the blog was how food science was the career path that chose you. And you talked about how you grew up on a small family farm in Jamaica. I think that's a really cool story, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about your farm and how it led to where you are today.
Okay, so my dad is a farmer. He plants everything you can think of. Once it grows, my dad plants it. So as a child, we grew up. Yes, he does. So we didn't even have to buy groceries sometimes, because we have all the ground provisions. There's some that you probably wouldn't even know of because I don't see it here in Canada, like starch provisions, ground provisions, and dark, leafy, and green vegetables. And also not just the dark ones, but other ones as well. So we growing up had a lot of vegetables to eat, a lot of starchy food. And fruits as well. We have so many fruits. So as a child, it was pretty much excited and interested because it was like a competition growing up with my siblings because we each got a little section of our own. Apart from our dad's farm, we get a little section and we each grow all the things that we think we can grow. And it was like a competition between each of us to see which of us little section was going to be looking the best at the end of the day and who's going to be reaping what first. So it was pretty much so excited because it wasn't just a competition, it was fun and we loved it. And so from then and there, I developed this passion for agriculture. And then when I was in high school, I chose agriculture as one of my subjects, practical subjects, along with food and nutrition. And then from there, I didn't stop. I went to an agricultural technical school after for 2 years. And then I went to an agricultural college where I did my associate degree and also my bachelor's degree. And during that time, when I was on campus, we have to get up and we have to go to the farm every single morning at 5 a.m. because we have to tend to the goats and the pigs and all the animals and also the crops, and we have to cut the grass and we have to feed the animals. So it's pretty much excited. And everyone would say to me, then, if you love agriculture so much, why isn't it the one that you're doing now? But they don't understand that agriculture is also the backbone for food science. So even though I'm not working in agriculture per se, and I'm working in food science, they're also connected. So it's a passion and a drive for me, for both of them. And that's why it stems to food science, because it starts, as you said, from the fork to the plate. And that's where it starts. And that's why it is so close to my heart. And that is why I'm passionate about it.
That is so cool. I mean, to have such a personal story from having a plot of land when you're growing up, that's just not something that I hear about much where I am. I'd be pressed to actually name you a person who I know that's grown up on a farm, and being able to be so personable with your food, you definitely, from your career, even just starting from a child, you have this whole perspective from, like you said, farm to fork that I just don't think many people have. So that's really cool.
Yes, thank you.
And I think another thing as well is, I guess that already just goes to show how different countries look at agriculture, because it seems like in Jamaica that you were able to actually take courses in high school related to agriculture. Yes. Am I correct?
Yes, there's a subject called agricultural science. I'm not sure if we have it here in Canada, but that's a subject like how you have chemistry. That was a subject like that. So on Fridays, I used to look forward to Fridays because we rear chicken at our school. So we have the chicken coop. And on Fridays, we used to bring clothes and we change. And when we kill the chicken and we cook and we have a feast as soon as the chicken becomes 6 weeks. So, and every week it will go, because every week as soon as we move one set to the other side and we put new batch over here. So it's like a continuous process. So it is a practical subject. So we have the theory part, and then we have the practical part where we're planting crops and we're also rearing animals. And then we're having the science part where we're doing that in the classroom. So it was pretty much mixed, and it was diverse, and it was pretty much interesting. And it's a really broad area. It's a really broad subject. And that's what makes it so interesting, because it's not just a theory where we sit in the classroom and just be bored by the teacher teaching. We get to go out and actually do the practicality of it, and that makes it pretty much interesting, and it was fun. So yeah, it was amazing.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite jealous of you right now, because I would have loved to have had a course like that in high school. I think the closest I had was we had cooking classes, but I never was able to take them, and we had a nutrition and gym science class, but it was more focused on learning how to be stronger athletes. It was a very strange course. I did enjoy it, but I was like, this is the closest thing I have to food science. So I'm kind of jealous of you right now. I'm not going to lie.
No. We also had the food and nutrition too, where we bake on Fridays too. So I did that course as well. So I did agriculture and I did food and nutrition too, where on every other Friday, we know that we're going to be cooking something or baking something in the lab as well. So that was a practical subject as well. So we had two fun subjects that was so amazing when we were in high school. I'm not sure if they have food and nutrition here in Canada, but or anything close to that. But yeah, we had that much fun, yes, back home.
Again, you are making me more jealous.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
It's so good. I think that at least in Ontario here, the equivalent, I'd have to actually ask Jenny, one of our other campus ambassadors, who's now just starting her career. She actually went to the same high school with me, and she did culinary arts we had at our school. So she did do cooking. So I think that is the closest that we have to what you were speaking of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. It's close to culinary arts, yes.
Yeah, which I think just goes to show with this conversation that how different countries view agriculture, or it shows like what different high schools around the world value and what they think they should be teaching students. So that's a really interesting thing for me to learn about. So
awesome. I'm happy.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. But I know now, obviously, we're speaking. I know that you live in Canada, so I was curious about. I've met you through Centennial College, and I know that you've spoken highly of Centennial College. So I wanted to just know about how did you transition to Canada, and why you chose Centennial College for next stepping stone in your career.
So the program at Centennial College was like a mirror to the bachelor's degree that I did back home in regards to the different courses. Because even when I, as a matter of fact, the reason why I chose Centennial College was because of the program that they had. When I look at the only other program that I see that was similar to the food science program was University of Saskatchewan for the Masters of Food Science. But I didn't want to go there, and I didn't want to wait. I was supposed to wait an extra year before I get up there. So I chose Centennial College, and I think I made the right choice. When I got there, however, because it was so mirrored to my bachelor's degree, I didn't even want to do some of the courses because it was like, oh my God, I already did these courses. I did these exact same course and practicals, and I honestly didn't want to do it. And they said, no, you have to do it because as a fast track student, you already skipped year one and go straight into year two because you already have a bachelor's degree. So you have to do these courses. And I was so happy that I did it too. Why? Because one, the system here is a little bit different. The practicals are a bit different. And even though I did some of those labs back home, I got a chance to use some of the equipment here were newer and they were different. They were easier than the ones that I had back home, maybe because of first world country, I'm not sure. But the different things that we used were better and easier. So I was so happy that they didn't allow me to do it. And the professors, I can tell you that I was shocked and I was amazed at how tolerant and patient they were and the level of, what would I call it, teaching that they gave, because they didn't just teach, they make sure that you understand and they make sure that you're not just passing the course. They're making sure that when you go out into the world, you're going to have that knowledge that you can use in the food industry. Because at some point I was wondering and thinking, how are these courses going to be relevant to when I go into the working world? But I can tell you, especially now since I'm at Waterloo Brewing, there are some analytical testing that I did when I was at Centennial that I'm doing it now. And I was like, oh, this is the reason why they make sure that we have to do it. And it's not just doing it. We have to learn it and not just plagiarize somebody else's work. Because when I came to Canada, I didn't even know, I don't do plagiarism back home. But I mean, when I came here, I understand how big plagiarism was. And then that kind of put it in the forefront of my brain to make sure that I understand. I just don't look at somebody else's work, but I understand. And that's what Centennial does. They make sure that you understand. And they're always open. If you don't understand something, you can always go to the lecturers. You can always find them, email them, do whatever you need to do to get them. And they're always there and willing and able to help you. And that's one of the good things that I loved about them. So sometimes because not every lecturer, professors are like that, because I've had some back home that it doesn't matter. But for these ones, I have high regards for them because of how they went above and beyond to make sure that we get all that we need to get, because when we go out into the food industry and the working world, we're going to be using them. So that's why I love Centennial College.
Wow, it sounds like it has a faculty that cares about you, but they're also smart in knowing, yes, of course you need to know that like technical background to working, but they want you to actually use the skills. So the fact that you actually were like, you got to your job and you were like, hey, I've actually done this before. I used this equipment at school. Like, I bet that also impressed your employer, because you could learn much faster going into those jobs.
Yes. Yes. That's basically it. Yes.
Oh, that's good to know. It sounds like you have a friend over here.
Yeah, we're still okay.
Yes,
good. I do.
That's okay. I think you can enjoy the podcast.
Yes. Well, we're okay. He was just being too excited.
So I guess we'll transition, because I know that you found out about FoodGrads, and you met Nicole when she was doing one of her, if I'm not mistaken, she was doing a booth at Centennial College. So you became, I think, one of the a very well-known campus ambassador for FoodGrads. So could you tell about your experience with that?
Oh yeah. Yes. So first, how I became campus ambassador, I got an email from one of our professors too. He sent a broadcasted email to all the students in the food science group. So I thought I had competition. I thought other persons were going to apply for it. But immediately I did apply. I didn't budge. I didn't think about the competition. I didn't think I did think about it, but I didn't care. So I applied right away. And then I got an email from Nicole. And I said, oh, I didn't know I was the only, she said I was the only one that applied. And I said, oh, I didn't know I was the only, because I thought it would be something that a lot of persons would have been interested in. But because of my personality, and I like to be in everything, and I'm outgoing, for me, I couldn't understand, oh, is it that nobody else grabbed at the opportunity? So I was a little bit shocked to know that it was only me, but I was pretty much excited, because I was like, okay, at least I'm going to be here so I can get to do bigger and better things. And then back and forth, Nicole and I exchanged through emails, and then she informed me that she was coming to Centennial on a particular day. And I made sure that I went and go meet her, because she had a booth. I think it was a food fair or something like that. And I went and I go meet her, and it was uphill since. And that experience for me was really good. And I'm not sure if I should say I'm lucky, but because of that connection with Nicole, I was able to get my first job in the food industry before I was even finished with my course. And because of that, I became very popular. I was already popular in my group, but I became more popular in my group. I was also able to activate the food science club on campus. I was able to connect with the junior food science students and us, the senior. I was able to put us together. We have activities and stuff like that. I was able to, so we were able to socialize with even other clubs, because when I was on campus, there was one food science club like some years before, but it wasn't activated since the last president had left a couple of years ago. So I got that opportunity to become the president of the food science club. I had a really good team, and we created a few activities on campus. We were able to connect with other club members, and we got a bunch of stuff done before the semester was over, and that helped me to move forward. And so a lot of people who didn't even know who I was, yes, I became popular because of that, And I also got a spread in the Centennial magazine where I was able to tell my story. And they also took that same article that I wrote, How Food Science Shows Me, and I also wrote an article to say how Centennial connected me to the working world. So I was able to get a spread in their magazine because of that. So I would say that becoming a campus ambassador was really a great opportunity for me. It also helped me to get good network on the FoodGrad and also LinkedIn until I disappear for a while. But then, yeah, I was so proud of what happened when I became the FoodGrad campus ambassador.
Wow. First of all, I wouldn't even say lucky with anything that you've done, because from what I've learned about you and reading because I've read both of those articles and I will link them again in the show notes below, but I think that you've worked so hard for what you've done, and your enthusiasm and passion for the industry really shows. And it's no small feat actually maintaining and starting, well, I say start a club, but maintaining a food science club. So that's not a small feat. So that is very impressive in itself. And it just goes to show that by having a presence on campus and doing activities, that it can give you a leg up for going into... Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, it's okay. It gives you a leg up going into the industry, and it shows that you're passionate about something. So good work. Like, I think that's all I can say. But another thing I also wanted to ask, because I'm just curious, because I never participated in any food science clubs. What kind of activities did you do, and what did you enjoy doing?
So we do activities such as a food fair. We did a food fair where people did from different backgrounds, because the Centennial College is so diverse. We have so much different culture and background. So we had one activity where we have different people create different meals in their culture, and we had that on display. And we also have like a tasting where people go around and taste a different food and do a critique. And we did a pizza party and we also do games, and we do like, I'm trying to remember. So we did so much stuff. I'm trying to remember some of the stuff that we did. We did so many different activities. We had quite a few parties. Most of the persons come for socializing anyway. I can remember the ones that we had that different people did different food, and we have a critique, and we have to...
That's okay. I think that you just basically brought up some fun ideas, and I love the idea of clubs are there for socializing, I think, to a certain extent. And I think that that's an important part of a club, because you want to, get connections with people, but actually just the simple ideas sometimes can just be the best ideas. And I think even something as just sharing your own culture's food, I think that that's something that needs to be done a bit more. And that's something I also like specifically about Canada, and probably something you get from Centennial College, is that there's a big diverse group of people that you're able to actually all share your cultures. So I think that some other food science clubs should probably steal that idea and do it themselves.
Yes.
So we're getting close to the end of the interview, but I have a few more questions that I wanted to ask you. Specifically, how was it transitioning? Because you said that you were able to find a position after graduating, before you even graduated. So I'll not focus on that part, but how was the transition going from school to a full-time career? Were there any challenges that you had to overcome, or is there any stories that you'd want to share about that?
The transition was pretty easy. Maybe because I was already working in the food industry before I came to Canada. So I kind of knew what to expect when I go in. I already knew GMPs, and I already knew food safety and stuff like that. So it was pretty much easy. The only challenge I had at the time was battling family time and work time at the time, because at that time I had a daughter so the work hours, at that time my husband wasn't here, so the work hours were clashing sometimes, so I had to leave work a bit early to go pick up my daughter when school was out and stuff like that. The first job I worked, it was a full-time job, but it wasn't a permanent job. It was a temporary job. So it was a job where I had to do product development. That area, I didn't work in that area before. It was a little bit of a challenge because I never developed products before. But after doing several different testings and doing different trials and stuff like that, it got easier before the contract was over. And then I transitioned, that was tempe. And then I transitioned into a full-time job where I work in the chicken industry. That job was pretty much challenging because that was night shift. It was challenging because of the working hours. And it was challenging because I've never worked in the chicken industry before. So that was the most critical industry I've ever worked in because of chicken consists of a lot of microbial loads and the risk of bacteria, and we have to do so many different changes. And so that was pretty challenging because even so you have the cooked area and the raw area. And if you're going into the cooked area, you have to wear a different lab coat than when you're going into the cook. So that was one of the most critical challenged industry I had. For the beer industry, it's pretty easy because it's not as critical as the chicken because you don't have a lot of bacteria and stuff in the beer industry as we did in the chicken industry. So we don't have to deal with CFIA as much as we did when I was working back at that company. So each one has their different challenges, but the transition was not that bad. And it all boils down to your mindset because you have to go in with a very positive mindset and you have to tell yourself that you can do it. It doesn't matter what. And it doesn't matter how difficult it got. I didn't let it got me all stressed out. I tried to keep focused and I tried to maintain a positive mood no matter what, even when I'm extremely stressed. And even when I'm extremely tired, because sometimes you have to be on your legs for long hours, but even when it got that hard, you can't get flustered because if you get flustered, you're going to make mistakes. And if you make mistakes, then that's not going to be good. So the one thing I can say, we just have to maintain a positive attitude.
Wow. It sounds like, oh gosh, I forgot what the question was because I was so into what you were saying. Because it's just.
I'm sorry. You said how easy it was to transition.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. No, because I was just so visualizing what you were speaking about. I've never personally worked in poultry, but I do know from what I've heard that it is a difficult environment because you have to be so on top of food safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, there's the risk of salmonella and all that. So I think that it's very remarkable that you have this attitude. And I think that shows with how you've been able to continue with your career. And I think that even working in an industry like that, having your children and keeping your mindset, I think that you are an amazing person. I should say that. So, wow.
Thank you, Veronica.
Wow. No, seriously, you just made me speechless with the story that you're saying. I guess, okay, so we are moving to the end of the podcast. So I wanted to just go over a few quicker questions. First, Do you have any food industry related books, podcasts, or people that you follow or you would recommend to others?
I don't have any book yet, and I don't have any podcast, and I would love to have both in the future. I only have the articles that I wrote. The only persons I really do follow is Nicole and you. I follow other food industry, but I'm not like actively involved on their, I'm not actively involved with them. So, but in the future, I would love to have a podcast and a book. And I was just telling Nicole about 2 or 3 weeks ago that I would like to start blogging again. I haven't got the time yet, but yes, I'm going to start blogging again, and I know what my next article is going to be about. I am hoping that in the future, my articles will turn into a book.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm usually, because I have access to the blog, I'll be the one.
Yes.
I'll be one of the first ones reading it. So I've loved reading
Awesome.
your stuff in the past and hearing about how passionate you are about it. So I know it takes time and it really is a commitment. So especially with, I don't even know how you've managed to do all that you've done so far, especially with your, you've just done a lot for your age. I know, coming from everything from, you've done a bachelor's degree, you've done what you've done back home, you have a family, and to juggle all that stuff and still have this happy attitude that you do, I think that's very impressive in itself. So I'm looking
Thank you,
forward
Veronica.
I'm looking forward to seeing even more with your future, because I can tell it's very bright.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. So with that, we've kind of already touched upon it, but I wanted to ask you, why is the food industry a great place to work?
The food industry is a great place to work. It's very diversified. It's not just one career. You have over 100 different careers in the food industry. And the thing about the food industry is that if you don't like one area, you can always change. I stayed in quality assurance because I like the practicality of it, but I can also go be a microbiologist. I can go be research and development. I can change because they're all related. And the thing about it is they're all trainable. It's not like each time you're going to change to a different area, you're going to have to go get a different degree. You can still use your same food science degree or microbiology degree or master's or whatever it is that you have, and transition into a different department, which is still in the food industry, because it's so broad. And that's the reason why I love the food science industry so much. And that's the reason why I would recommend it, because it's not just a tiny little box that you're going to be in all your life and you're going to get bored and stuff like that. You can always mix it up, or you can always change and do something else if you're not feeling whatever it is that you're doing at any moment.
I love that. I love that. Even I know personally that it's a career field where if you are able to pivot and just look at your next step, the educational background that you have can be something that can satisfy your career for a very long time. So you just have to kind of know in the moment what you want to do now. So, and if you don't want to do it for now, you're a good example. You can move to somewhere else that fits you a little more. And it's good that you found something that you do like right now. So that's good.
Yes, thank you.
And we'll finish it off with our last question, which is, even though we've touched upon it, what advice would you give someone who wants to pursue a career or a job like what you have right now?
I would say go for it. You can never go wrong. And as I was saying before, you don't have to stick to the same thing. Whatever I'm doing, it's not going to be for everyone, because not everyone likes practicals. Not everyone wants to stand on their feet or walk around on their feet for hours. Some persons are desk persons. They want to sit in the lab and they want to count microbes and they want to do research and they want to do other stuff. But I would say go for it, because it's a pretty good and interesting career. And I think it's there for everyone to choose. I would say go for it.
I love that. You have this can-do attitude that if you don't like something, just move on. And if you like something and you are kind of interested, just do it.
Yes, I think so.
So that's all that we have for time for today's episode. So I wanted to thank you, Sashana, for coming on the show. I think this was a great conversation, and I think that we really got to learn more about you. I mean, we've heard from you from your articles, but actually I think having a voice now that people can hear that passion to put it to, I think people are going to enjoy that.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It was so good to be here too. I enjoyed it.
Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into the show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then let us know. You can rate this episode on Apple iTunes and share it on social media. If you have any people or careers you would like to be explored on this podcast, then let me know. You can email me or Nicole on our emails found on this episode's show notes. All the show notes for this podcast episode can be found on the FoodGrads website and by clicking on the podcast tab on the website. There you can find any future and past episode links. Next week on the show, you can hear my interview with Elizabeth Hagerman, a food scientist at the Waterloo Corporation. Elizabeth and I talk about what it's like to be a food scientist in the confectionery industry and how we are both students in PMCA's Student Outreach Program. That is, the Professional Manufacturing Confectioners Association. Elizabeth and I also talk about how she is currently working towards a master's degree in global food law and how she is learning about the areas of counterfeit products and intellectual property protection for food and beverage companies. I think this is a really upcoming type topic that I think a lot of people should be thinking about. It's really interesting. So, join me for next week's episode and I'll see you later. Bye!